And we're back with Dr. Christian von Lahr. I'm Christopher Valentine now. Dr. Christian von Lahr.
I wanted to say something,
Yes.
Chris. Haven't you noticed that when we go out on the road, we're talking about the nature spirits, and we're literally teaching for free, usually, people everywhere in the country how to see them within an hour and a half. We've really perfected this technique. Haven't you noticed that people say that you look like a nature spirit?
I get all the nature spirits.
So what I want to know is, what kind do you think you were, and what did you do?
You know what? I feel I have a little bit of all the nature spirits in me. I have a very close affinity to the gnomes, though.
Well, what kind of work would you have done? That's what I want to know.
Well, let's see.
Because most people, when they indicate they have this affinity for an elf or a gnome or leprechaun, they're usually able to tell me that they had certain functions that they did.
I have these visions of being living in a tree trunk, and not only that, it was like a great hall inside, and so. I don't really remember the work, but I do remember something very telling. It felt communal. It felt like we were all one together, all the gnomes
As if you lived in the tree house?
Well, it wasn't a tree house. It was more like a tree trunk. And it wasn't that we worked in the tree trunk, we lived there or had a hall there. But the work that we did, whatever it was, out in the world, out in the farm or wherever it was communal.
But couldn't you have been building the facility, the tree facility?
I could have. I could have been an artist painting on the walls.
I see you more as like, and you guys let me know. I see you something. I got some elf stuff going on with you.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe sharing some of that wisdom could be why you're writing these books.
Well, I have all of my past lives seem to be connected with the nature spirits. Now, I'm talking now as a human. All my many past lives, even from the very earliest time I came to Earth, seem to be already immediately connected with the nature spirits, including the elves that you just mentioned.
But see, maybe you're passing that wisdom from generation to generation. I see you sort of like as an emissary of all the different nature spirits coming out in the forest to welcome new people. You're probably the first elf that walked on water. Hey, I'm coming. And you probably have to travel all over the place and spread this wisdom, because just like we speak of the elders in the indigenous races now, someone has to be passing that wisdom on from generation to generation. Now, I'll accept that I was probably a gnome, but I think I might have been the king. I think that would be great.
I think so.
When people say that, Christian, you look like the king of the gnomes. I can see that. You better work. Dig! I need bigger diamonds! I could see that, but how long could I do that? I'm sure that after a while, it's like, okay, we've had enough of that king. And so they'd probably make me work in the soup kitchen or something, which is probably why I cook to this day. But I think a lot of our traits, a lot of our skills, a lot of our talents, this is my thought. I think all of these skills and attributes that we have, we've probably exhibited in some way in the animal kingdom, in the plant kingdom, in the minerals themselves, and in the nature spirit kingdoms. I think we're reinforcing those.
Yeah. Some people can actually remember, too, being part of the mineral kingdom or the plant kingdom. Some people can remember being plants, and that's really
and I bet you they may have an affinity for leprechauns. And so imagine the leprechauns doing the magical thing, and also all that herb gathering and all the properties that are so healthy for us in plants and herbs, putting those together, doing magical things. And today they're probably pharmacists, right?
Yeah. Well, I look forward to the future when we work even more with the nature spirits, especially the elves, who are the keepers of the wisdom of the nature spirit community. And I understand they're going to be teaching me a lot more about the herbs and healing and health. And so I so much look forward to that. You know what? I think in my past lives they were teaching me as well. And so my passion is the nature spirits. That's why I feel I'm here, and I'm so excited to be able to talk about this on television and bring this information to as many people as I can.
So we should probably then start distinguishing what the different kinds of nature people are, because people out there are going to want to know, gosh, am I a gnome or am I an elf, right? So where do you want to start with that? What they look like?
Well, since we look like gnomes, why don't we start why don't we start with gnomes and some of the basic
Remember,
features.
my ears are close. They're not out here, but okay.
Well, we'll start with the head. Okay. Gnomes really do have those conical red and green hats. Those are the main two colors that, of course, gnomes resonate to. But
and of course, we're wearing red and green today.
By accident,
but the hats would usually be this color, conical.
Yes.
And they would wear the green. Now, here's something people don't know, Christopher. The colors, when we speak of things metaphysically or spiritually, are consistent. Whether we're talking with nature spirits, looking out in the cosmos, or clairvoyantly seeing things behind people, they all mean the same thing. The color of true love is forest green to a clairvoyant. And when we see forest green out in nature before humans, wouldn't that make sense? That was the divine's expression of true love. The entire world was this deep, rich green and other various shades. And so they wear that out of love, and also the red is sort of passion. But they can change colors, they can change hats and clothes. But the features are also interesting. I was mentioning the ears before. Now, all nature spirits tend to have interesting looking ears, and they vary. But like the gnome's ears can actually bend at the top, even though they're slightly pointed. They can bend down and they can twist this way. And this is why they can hear in great distances. They can know when people are coming or what the weather is. They can birds. They can hear the animals coming. But they actually track and keep notice of things with those ears.
They actually told us a few days ago they can smell our home miles away before we even get there. So they're
that's all my years in the soup kitchen there.
So as Christian is saying, they have extremely sensitive hearing and sense of smell.
Yeah, the nose, of course, has they consider it a special feature. The gnomes actually, they have funny stories in some of the books about this olfactory factors, whatever. They take our terms and sort of add a few extra vowels here and there, and they kind of come out kind of cute. But they use the nose to tell them things like what's cooking, of course, but what's in that field over there. Maybe they're looking for a certain herb. They can smell that. Or when animals are moving or people are moving around. So they can judge and augment their sense of awareness with both the ears and the nose. But what about the eyes? Now, eyes can be very interesting too. Nature people have pretty good eyes. And we asked them about it once, and one of the books was it the elves or the gnomes that talked about how they focus the eyes?
Well, those are the elves, and elves have extremely good sense of sight. And what they said is they use the eagle's eyes, who are known to have that precision from miles flying up. They can see the smallest animal on the ground, but they look into the eyes of an eagle, and they said that's how they get their eyes sensitized and focused right.
And that's why the birds move that way. It's like, what's going on? And there's an elf going. And they're just sort of calibrating. And actually they sort of adjust to that and use that to see great distances. And elves are often found very high up in trees, acting somewhat like scouts, knowing what's going around. But also they're the wisdom keepers of the nature kingdom. They collect the wisdom. We said they don't change the wisdom, but someone has to be collecting it. And they have a great book, they say, and they collect the wisdom and keep recording it. But they're also talking with cloud spirits, which actually are a type of nature spirit. And all sorts of things. Fire is a nature spirit too, or the spirit of the flame, as is water. And so they have to somehow be in connection with all of these. What's interesting though about elves, and they're a very, very amazing little person. First of all, they take care of unicorns.
Yes.
And people say, oh, there can't be unicorns, but there are. Because in the nature kingdom, they don't have doctors like we have. And so there has to be some natural way to bring about health and harmony. And so that unicorn horn is actually blending 7 energies and restoring things to the proper condition, which is exactly how nature spirits help and empower us. Because when we're ill, they just get us back to the shape we're supposed to be in. And when they help us, like leprechauns help us with the computer, people will say, how is that possible? Do they go to IT Institute? No, but they understand the blueprint and restore things to that original way.
To the original state that it was in, right. And getting back to gnomes, they really do look like that garden statuary that you can get at the home and garden stores. They're about 1 foot to 1.5 feet tall. We talked about their conical hats, which very distinguish them. When people see them at our expos, where we teach you how to see them live, you can see gnomes on my shoulders. And how you know that they're gnomes is they'll have those pyramidal type hats. And when I sway back and forth, you can see the hats moving with me. And
I could see you in a conical hat. Those hats are interesting too, because it sort of tells something about their trade. I've seen them yellow and brown and blue and green. And when I communicate with the gnomes, and we're going to talk about how you can do that, they tell us that it's an indication of what they do for a living, where they live. Are they living at the top of the mountain? Sometimes there's a fold or a crease in the hat that tells
little thing
elevation.
means something.
There could be a shaft of wheat in the hat.
which would mean they're a farmer. Every little detail on a gnome's hat signifies something. And when other gnomes see that gnome with all the different creases that Christian was talking about, they can tell exactly what that gnome does for a living, exactly where that gnome lives around the side of the mountain behind 2 creeks.
You know, most people don't realize that the gnomes have curious looking feet. And by the way, fairies have interesting noses and fingers. We'll have to talk about that. But the gnome's feet are something hobbit-like because they actually use those feet to help them jump over rocks in the field because they're not used to paved roads and sidewalks like we have. They can actually climb walls. They can hop over things. So those toes can actually grab things a little bit, and some of the appendages bend special ways to give them lift and movement.
Help them climb faster and move great distances. And when we come back, we're going to be talking more about those very characteristic aspects of gnomes, fairies, elves, and leprechauns.
So stay with us. We're going to be back talking about all of the kingdoms of nature and more nature spirits.